I was coming over because, so my dad has just gotten out of hospital. He's nearly 80 years of age, and I'm in between jobs, so I decided that I'd come home and spend a bit of time with him, look after him, because he needs someone to be there at home with him. He doesn't walk very well, and I was denied any kind of legal advice. I was told that if I left the hotel, that they would call the guards and have me arrested. So they wouldn't even give me any kind of legal advice or anything. I mean, what kind of country is this? I wasn't I was coming home to look after my dad.
Thank you so much for having had the strength to hang in there and to expose what's been going on. Because I'm sure there are many others who have gone down that road before. I'm sure there have been many other tears shed, but this is the most dramatic expose ever done on the sheer disgusting, callous, inhuman, inconsiderate nature of the treatment being meted out by some people in this process to innocent civilians. And we're all in your debt for having gone through that for us all. And I appreciate it. And I would like to apologize, because you're not going to get apologies from this state. But
No.
On behalf of the people of this country, we're very sorry for what was done to you. It does not reflect our values. And we'll be getting rid of the people who did this to you. Thanks very much, Cindy.
Not at all. Not at all. And, anyone who did ever feel like they needed to apologize are certainly not the ones who should be apologizing, but I appreciate it nonetheless.
And how is your father, Cindy, now?
He is, to be honest, he's not well. He's just gone through so much stress. I mean, he wasn't well to begin with, which is the reason why I came home.
And did I pick up that the reason for his not being well has to do with a vaccine, or did I get that right?
Well, you see, the hospital would never admit to that, but let's just say he started to feel quite unwell after he had the second jab. Yeah.
Second jab, which is the one that would be likely to cause reactions, is the second jab. So I think we can take it that due to the proximity of his feeling unwell, that it was the jab that caused that. So they've really done a job on both of you, haven't they?
Yeah. I've lived in the UK for about 25 years. So I live in London. I've got 3 kids. I'm self-employed, driving instructor, and I've had a pretty shitty couple of weeks because my engine has literally died on my car, so it's in the Ford garage, and I haven't been working. Not to mention the fact that I haven't worked the whole way through the lockdown. My dad, so I actually spent about a month with my dad from March to April, and I went home because it was lockdown. I came over. He needed help. He wasn't well. I went home. I went back home. Went back to work again. Car packed up. So I thought, right, while it's in the garage, I'm going to come back, because my dad obviously had the second Pfizer vaccine. Didn't have the best reaction to it. Ended up in hospital. So I booked a flight. And we had problems with a carer who was looking after my dad, and that carer no longer looks after my dad. So while another one was being assigned to him, I said to the lady who organises all the carers that I would come over. So I booked a one-way flight, because I thought I'll see what happens and I'll go with the flow, and I'll book a one-way flight. And I'll get my lateral flow test. I literally live 10-minute walk from London Bridge. So walked down the road, got the lateral flow test, got the results about an hour later, negative, fine. Now that is exactly what I did when I initially came over to Ireland on the 10th of March for a month. So I thought, that's fine, no problem, sure. I mean, I got through the last time, don't think they even checked my text message from the NHS to say that I tested negative. So can you still hear me? I just want to check, sorry.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes. Okay, so I got on the I went to Stansted Airport. I was queuing. What they do is they actually check your phone to see if you have gotten a result from the NHS. So the lady looked at my phone, and they mark a ticket, and they mark it whether you have paid for your test, so whether you've gotten a private test or whether you have gotten your test with the NHS. And then she hands me a ticket, and she says to me, when you go up to show your boarding pass before you get on the plane, you give them that ticket. So that's fine. Grand. So no questions asked, nothing. That's fine. The test is grand. So jump on the plane, get out the other end. There's a huge queue where you go through immigration. The last time there was no queue at all, probably because less people were traveling. Now that more people are traveling, there was, quite a long wait. So I waited about 20 minutes. Finally got to the end of the queue, and an immigration officer asked me, could he see my passenger locator form? Showed him that. And then he said, can I see your COVID test? So I said, yeah, no problem. Showed it to him. He said to me, oh, that's not a PCR test. And I said, no. I said, that's a lateral flow. He said, yeah. He said, that's not acceptable. And I said, well, I came in on the 10th of March and it was fine. No problems. So he said, you'll have to go over and speak to the guards. So he sent me to another queue. I was like, okay. At that point, I didn't know anything that I was being detained, nothing like that. No idea. So I queued up. I spoke to a lady guard who told me that I think I remember, if I remember her rightly, she said that she was cautioning me under Section 38B of the Health Act 1947, something like that. And they said that I would be detained in a centre until I tested negative for PCR. So I said, okay, no problem. I said, how long will that take? She said, oh, it should only take a couple of hours. She said, now let me tell you now, explain to them your circumstances. Tell them that your dad's on his own. He hasn't got his carer there, because I'd explained to her the whole story. And explain, just tell them all your circumstances and you should be fine. You should get out and you'd be at home with your dad tonight. I said, right, grand, no problems. Okay, silly me. I've come over. I haven't checked properly. I just assumed, a test is a test. You just say you need a negative COVID test. Okay, fine. That was that. So I was sent over to it was a bit like, it wasn't a room. It was in the corner of the immigration hall. And there was a wall around us, and the wall was I'd say about 4 meters high. So it looks like a separate room, but it's only half a wall, if you know what I mean. So I'm sitting in there now, and there's absolutely no social distancing going on. There's stickers on chairs saying do not sit here, but sure, where would you sit? There's nowhere to sit because it's all around in a square. So there's a lady with her husband, 2 very young children. One was about 4, the other was like 2. There was a couple of young lads. There was a guy had just flew in from the UK. So everybody had flown in from the UK. It was about 20 of us all together. So after about 2 hours, customs came. So we were accompanied by customs officers to the exit of the airport. And this is when things start to get a little bit tense. So we were met by a member of the Irish Army, all like camouflaged up and all the rest of it. And I thought, oh, okay, this is not what I expected. So I thought, I started to get a bit nervous then. So he said, does anybody have any questions? And I said, yes. I said, where are we going? He said, you're going to a centre. I said, is it in Dublin? Yes, it is. I said, and what's going to happen there? Well, we'll tell you all that when you get there. And I said, well, I'd like to know before we get there. And he said, no, we'll inform you when you get there of what's going to happen. And I said, well, what if I refuse to go with you? What happens then? We'll call the guards and you will be arrested. Yeah. So that was that. I thought, right, I need to be careful here because for my job, I need criminal disclosure. So I need to be careful that I don't, get arrested or have a criminal record. Otherwise, I won't be able to work. So I thought, right, better do that. A few people were kind of kicking up a fuss, but they decided, right, we're going to go with it. So we all got in this coach, and I have videos. I made videos all, and we were told nothing, absolutely nothing. So we've all been sitting in this room for 2 hours, all together, bunched in, and then the driver of the coach, as we were queuing up to get in, he said, "Please stay 2 meters apart." So I'm thinking to myself, holy Jesus, like, what the hell is going on here? I said, we've just been sitting in a room and now you're telling us to stay 2 meters apart and sanitize our hands getting onto the coach and all this crack. Okay, fine. So we all sat kind of up the front of the coach. Again, no social distancing. So we're going through town and I'm thinking, God, I wonder where they're taking us. We were going kind of close to Clontarf and down near Fairview, and then we ended up in the Croke Park Hotel. So I was kind of cracking jokes, thinking, Jesus, I wonder will we get to swim in the pool and all this, because there was a girl across from me from Northern Ireland and she was bawling her head off, bawling. She was on the phone to some Sinn Féin, I don't know what they call him, a TD or whatever over here, but up in Northern Ireland, and or some minister or something. So she kept crying and then she stopped crying. And I said, listen, you're going to be all right. Don't worry, it's fine. So we get off the coach and we get escorted into the hotel. We're met by security staff in the hotel, and then we're brought into, it's like a reception room in the hotel, quite a large room. We're all put on different tables. So any member of a different household is put on a different table. So nobody came in and made an announcement to us as a group. Nobody knew what the hell was going on. Everybody was kind of approached individually. We weren't approached as a group. We weren't encouraged to ask any questions. We weren't asked if we had any questions. We were handed, so after that, a security guard came in and I saw people filling out forms and I thought, what's going on here? So she came in and she said, come up to reception. We need to give you an envelope. So I went up to reception. The lady asked me for my passport. And I said, no, I'm not giving you my passport. She said, well, we have some forms here. So, and I need to identify your, I need to, see your identification because I need to know because you're going to be staying here. So that was the first point at which I thought, what are you talking about? I'm not staying here. I'm just getting a test and I'm going home. So I said to her, right, so if I'm staying here, am I liable to pay for this accommodation? She said, I can't answer that question. I said, right, okay, so just to let you know now that I will not be filling anything in and I will not be paying anything into this hotel. I'm not paying anything. She's like, okay, fine, just take the paperwork. And I said, right, grand. So I took the paperwork, went back to the reception room, escorted, of course. He couldn't go anywhere without a security guard. Went back to the room, started looking at the paperwork. And I thought, it said hotel guest registration. I thought, what? I'm not a guest. As far as I'm concerned, I'm being held against my will. So I said to the security guard, I said, I'm not filling this in. I said, because I am not a guest of this hotel. I didn't choose to be a guest. And you're holding me against my will. The security guard turned around and said to me, we are not holding you against your will. You are free to leave at any time. I said, okay, in that case, I'm going to go. And she goes, oh, but I must advise you, if you do leave, we will call the police and we will have you arrested. And I said, under what grounds? And she said, under the whatever blah-de-blah COVID Act or whatever it is. So a guy, I said, well, I'm not filling any forms. So what happened then was, basically what happened was, because I had said, I'm not filling any forms, the other 19 people in the room turned around and said, they started kind of talking kind of amongst themselves. Some of them were couples, some of them were on their own. And a man from Mayo stood up and he said, excuse me, he said, if she's not filling them in, I'm not filling them in either. So they didn't like the fact that there was now 2 people disagreeing with them. And then a third person said, well, I'm not doing it either. After that, they took that group of people and separated them from me, took them into a different room so they couldn't communicate with me. So I thought, as time is going by, I'm getting slightly more stressed and more concerned. And I then saw 2 members of the Irish Army. They were actually, their role is SLO, and that stands for State Liaison Officer. So I said, excuse me, I need to ask you a couple of questions. Now, the young lad, I mean, he looked younger than my eldest son. So he must have been about 19, maybe 18, 19. And I asked him where was my legal representative, because I was told by the police in Dublin Airport that I would have legal advice. I would have advice on COVID and all the rest of it, what I was entitled to, and this, that, and the other, and my rights when I got to the centre. She didn't call it a hotel; she called it a centre. So when I said that and I recorded everything. I recorded everything. It wasn't necessarily people's faces, but I recorded conversations. I asked the soldier where my representative was, and he said he had no idea what I was talking about. And whoever told me that had told me a lie, and that there were no representatives here. And he told me that he told me I wasn't entitled to legal representation. So that was the thing that made me think, I don't know, I can't remember ever watching. I mean, the only thing I know this is a bit warped, but I watched The Handmaid's Tale once, and I thought, oh God, this is kind of a bit similar. It's very strange. I feel like slowly but surely my freedoms are being pulled away from me. So then I started to panic, and I thought, right, I phoned my brother over in the UK, who's really clever guy, really, really clever guy. Doesn't hold back. I trust his judgment. I said, look, this is what's happening to me. And he was livid. And he said, do not put pen to paper for anything. So I didn't. About 40 minutes later, the room started to kind of empty. Now, at this point, I wasn't offered a drink. I wasn't offered any food. And I was hungry. I hadn't eaten since about 5:15 that morning. So I thought to myself, oh God, what am I going to do? So another SLO, his name, actually, the first guy wouldn't give me his name. He said that he wasn't obliged to give me his name. The second guy, his name was John. He was an older man. He was quite pleasant, but also very direct in the information that he was giving me. And he said that if I didn't sign or fill in any of the forms, that I would be arrested by the police. That's exactly what he told me. The police would come and arrest me. I said, okay, let me ask you a question. I said, you get me the manager of this hotel. I want to know how much it is to stay here every night. Yeah. He said, well, okay, because I want to know if I'm liable. So manager comes. I said to the manager, her name was Siobhan. I said to the manager, right, okay, you tell me how much it is to stay in this hotel every night. She said, it's 155 euros. I said, right, and am I expected to pay for this? I said, because I'm being held against my will. Once again, she said, like a robot, you're not being held against your will. You can leave anytime you like. But we will be obliged to call the Gardaí. So I said, well, then I can't leave, can I? And she said, well, it's your choice. And I said, well, no, that's not really a choice, love. So I said, okay, so tell me what the situation is. So how many nights am I going to be here? So SLO piped up and said, right, today is Friday. So we'll get you a COVID test by the end of the day. Once that comes back negative, he said, we'll get you a COVID test tomorrow, Saturday. Once that comes back negative and you fill in an appeals form and it is assessed by the Ministry for Health, on Sunday, you will be released. I said, okay, right, that's fine. Thank you for that information. It's the first bit of information that anybody has given me as to what the hell is going on here. Friday night, £155, and Saturday night, that is, well, 360, 370. I said, I can't afford that, and I'm sorry, I don't have the money to pay for that. So therefore, let me just inform you now, I will not be paying that. Therefore, I will not be filling in these forms. And if you want to call the police, you can call them. So I started to get upset, and by then, obviously starving and really panicky, I felt like I was in a foreign country. I mean, I was like, I cannot believe I am in Ireland. This is like weird and scary. I started crying, and they said, oh, okay, well, don't get yourself upset now. And then I started to cry louder. And then they said, right, okay, I'll tell you what, you don't need to fill in the forms, all right? We'll bring you up to the room and we'll bring you up an appeals form. I said, okay, grand, no problem. I'll go, well, I didn't say, okay, grand. I said, right, well, I don't really have a choice here, do I? Right, so security escorted me up to the room. They warned me that if I left the room without ringing down to reception to ask for a security chaperone for any reason, if I wanted to leave the room, that the Gardaí would be called and I'd be arrested. So I had only been in that place probably, well, I don't know, 3 hours, and I'd been threatened with arrest probably 6 times. So that's every half an hour I was threatened that I was going to be arrested. By the way, just for the record, I've never been arrested in my life. I've never even been cautioned by the police. So yeah. After that, I hope this story is not long-winded. So if you want me to get to the point at any time.
It's fascinating actually. Well, and harrowing, you know.
Okay, cool. So I went up to, I'm up in the room, I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, oh my God, I need to do something. I've got to do something about this situation. All the while I'm getting really stressed. My brother's ringing me. I'm like, my dad's ringing me. My dad's like, what are they? I said to my dad, I said to him, don't worry, Dad, I'll be home in a few hours. Nothing to worry about. Because I don't want him getting stressed. You know what I mean? The poor man has enough to be, you know, he's just gotten out of hospital. And he's like, okay, I'll tell you what, I'll ring you. Don't worry, I'll be home this evening. It'll be grand. I didn't tell him what was going on. I just thought, let me try and deal with this in my own way. And then if I have to tell him, I'll tell him. So I sat in the room and I decided, you know what, I'm going to go out of the room and see what happens. So I went out of the room and I started walking around the corridors with my mask on now. I wasn't maskless. I wasn't that rebellious, but I was walking around the corridors and I see a security guard. And the security guard comes over and he goes, what are you doing out of your room? And I said, I'm just feeling quite anxious, so I'm just kind of trying to walk it off. And he goes, you have to go back to your room. And I said, I'm not going back to my room. I said, I'm not a teenager, like, you know, this young lad, 18 years of age, telling me 40 something to go back to my room, would you stop? I just thought it was hilarious. This other guy come up and he said, if you don't go back to your room now, I'm calling the guards. And I said, what do you mean? I said, am I not free to leave? He said, yes, you can leave any time, but we'll call the guards. And I said, so you'll call the guards if I leave and you'll call the guards if I leave my room. And I said, I want to speak to your superior. And he wouldn't let me down to the reception. And I videoed that interaction as well. During this time, my partner was on the phone to me. So he's over in Essex, and he was on the phone to me and he said, I'm going to phone the hotel. So he phoned the hotel and recorded a conversation over the phone. The manager would not admit that the army were in the hotel, was very, very cagey about that. He wouldn't admit that I'd been threatened with arrest. He wouldn't even acknowledge the fact. You know, that was that. So so that happened, and I think what happened was about I left the room a couple of times after that, because I just thought, you know, I want to give them the heads up early on that I am not going to be, you know, someone who's just going to lay down and, you know, take this easy. So I left the room a couple of times, so I could see they were getting really fed up with me, and just constantly threatening to call the police. So I'm sitting in the room and it's about 5 o'clock and I've got this pain in my chest and I'm thinking, Jesus, this doesn't feel good. I said, I know I'm under a certain amount of stress, but I'm a young person, so why am I feeling like this? It's pain. Pain's going into my chest, going down my left arm. I'm thinking, oh, that's not a good sign, right? So I phone, oh, by the way, I'm absolutely screaming, crying as well. I could not contain myself. I'm in the room. I am screaming. Nobody came to the room. Nobody knocked on the door. Nobody checked to see if I was all right. So now we are at 6 o'clock now. Sorry, 6:30, 7. I've been screaming for about half an hour. Nobody knocked on my door. And when I say screaming, I mean I was. So I phoned down and I said, I need an ambulance, please, because I think I'm having I said I've got severe chest pain, and I said I'm not really sure what's happening to me. I need an ambulance. So okay, we'll send a medic up. I said I didn't ask for a medic. I asked for an ambulance. Okay. About 5 minutes later, a nurse comes into the room. She said, do you have any health conditions? I said, excuse me. She said, do you have any health conditions? I said, do you know how long I've been here and nobody's asked me if I had a health condition? I said, I could have diabetes. I could be running out of insulin or whatever. And nobody has asked me if I have a health condition. So what kind of scam are you running here? What's going on? I said, I need an ambulance. I didn't ask for you. I asked for an ambulance. So she started taking my blood pressure. We're calling an ambulance. And I said, well, you better bloody call one, because if I die of a heart attack here, I'll come back and I'll haunt you. So basically, they phoned an ambulance. Although I don't actually believe they did phone an ambulance, because the ambulance didn't turn up until about 70 minutes afterwards. So ambulance turned up at about 7:45 in the evening. Couldn't do enough for me. The ambulance guys came in, really nice guys. Put me in a chair, did an ECG, concerned about quite a fast pulse. Pulse rate was quite fast for a person that's resting in a bed. So they said, you know what, your ECG looks all right, but I have a history of tachycardia. So they said, we don't want to take any risks. And tachycardia is when your heart skips beats or beats twice. And I've had episodes of that in the past, and I've been to see a cardiologist and everything about it. So they said, not happy. So we're going to take you down to the Mater Hospital. I said, fantastic. Get me the hell out of here. Right, so they're wheeling me, so they have me in the lift and they're wheeling me down, and I go out the hotel door and there is 2 huge men standing at the door, all dressed in camouflage, so Irish soldiers, Irish Army. And they're passing by, the paramedics wheeling me out, and the soldiers say, what time will she be finished at? Or you need to give us a call when she's finished. And one of the paramedics turned around and said, oh, sorry, mate, that's not our job. We don't do that. So I kind of heard the paramedics mumbling in the ambulance something about the effing cheek of him or something like that. And I thought, right, fair play. These guys are, they know the story. Anyway, got to the hospital. I'm left sitting in this outside marquee thing. And nobody checks me. Nobody does anything. No vitals, nothing. Sitting there for about an hour and a half. And then I get checked, blood pressures, bloods, and then I have the COVID check. And I think I'm probably missing about a quarter of my brain at this stage, because she shoved the whatever it's called, the stick thing, so far up my nose, it actually went down into my throat. Yeah, I mean, that was ridiculous. So I said to the nurse, I said, when I get that, will I get the results of that COVID test before I leave the hospital? And she said, oh, yes, you will, yeah. I said, okay, fine. That's grand. And the doctor came in, had a look at my ECG. She sent me for an X-ray just to double check. So they were really thorough, I must say, about them. I said, I explained to the doctor my situation. If this COVID test comes back negative, am I all right to go home to my dad's house? And she said, I don't see why not. Yeah, that's fine. I said, okay, grand. So the doctor leaves, goes out. Obviously, the nurse has a little chat with her, and they get on the phone to the quarantine hotel. And they say, obviously, she's not allowed to leave, even though she's had a negative test. You need to bring her back here. The minute they got off the phone, I had a security guard outside the door of my room watching me to make sure I didn't escape. So she came in and she said, you're going back to the quarantine facility. And I said, excuse me? I said, your colleague just told me that she was happy for me to be released to my dad because my COVID test was negative. And she said, no. She said, we've been on the phone to them and they said that you're going back to the quarantine facility and there will be 2 people to come and pick you up. So I waited for about an hour and a half. So at this stage, we are 3 o'clock in the morning and the doctor comes in and says, they're here to pick you up. I said, okay, fine. And she said, are you all right? And I said, no. I said, why would I be all right? I said, I'm being held against my will. And she goes, well, you're not. You can leave. And I said, yeah, and what will happen then? And she goes, well, you'll be arrested. And I said, well, what would you expect me to do then? So what happened then was I just got so pissed off. I got my stuff. I put my jacket on. I left the room. I went downstairs with all my stuff. And I have another video of me trying to leave the hotel, and they threatened me again. They say, you can't leave, you have to wait for your paperwork. And I said, my dad is outside, he's nearly 80 years of age, he's been sitting out there waiting for me, I'm not allowing him to wait any longer. One of the security guards came over and said, I'll tell you what, just sit down there for 2 minutes, please, and we'll have your paperwork. I said, I'll give you 2 minutes. So I sat down. And right enough, about 2 minutes later, paperwork was in my hand, and I walked out of that place. I wasn't